Welcome to my video lecture series, guys. Last time we had completed with mutations and the genetic code. Okay, we had seen what are the mutations, what is a frame shift mutation, what is a point mutation. Okay, before that we had completed the genetic code part, and before that transcription. So now the next part is going to be the last part of protein synthesis called as translation. But before we begin with that part, there is a small part about tRNA which is given in your book. Okay, so you have learned about the tRNA in 11th standard. It's exactly the same, so we'll do that. Okay, so the heading given in your book is tRNA as an adapter molecule, so I will write it down over here. So that is the heading given in your book. Okay, so what is the meaning of tRNA being an adapter molecule? Okay, first of all, what is the meaning of an adapter? Take the example of your phone charger. Okay, so nowadays the chargers, they have that USB cable, correct? And the USB cable has a 2-pin adapter. Now why do you need that adapter? Because when you connect the USB cable to the phone, you need the other end to be connected to the socket. But can that USB cable be directly connected to the socket? No, it cannot be, right? So you use that 2-pin adapter so that the USB cable can be connected to the socket, and without that 2-pin adapter the cable cannot be connected and you will not be able to charge your mobile. So in a similar way, tRNA is also called as an adapter molecule because it is basically connecting, or it is bringing the amino acids to the mRNA. See, the mRNA has got codons, you know that, correct? And the codons are a triplet, but the amino acids themselves cannot recognize the codon. For example, if the codon is AUG, okay, then AUG codon codes for amino acid methionine, but methionine itself cannot recognize that AUG codon and come to the mRNA. Similarly, if the codon is GGG, then GGG codes for glycine, but the glycine amino acid cannot recognize the codon itself. So because the amino acid cannot recognize the codon or the code by itself, therefore it needs an adapter which can recognize the codon, and that adapter will take the amino acid to the mRNA. So tRNA is basically transferring or bringing the amino acid to the mRNA. That is it. It is not doing anything else. Please remember this. Okay, so that is why tRNA is called as an adapter molecule. Have you got the point? So I will write down the main function of tRNA, okay, is to bring the amino acid. So amino acids short form is written as AA, okay, to bring the amino acids to the mRNA, correct? And that is why they are called as an adapter molecule, because they are connecting the mRNA and amino acids. Now where are the amino acids present? The amino acids are present in the cytoplasm. The tRNA is produced by transcription, the same way how mRNA is produced, correct? If you remember, tRNA is produced by RNA polymerase 3, DNA dependent RNA polymerase 3. So that enzyme, if it is used in transcription, tRNA is produced. Then tRNA, it is produced inside the nucleus, transcription occurs in the nucleus, and after transcription the tRNA will go out in the cytoplasm and it will bring the amino acid to the mRNA. Okay, so is this concept clear? Now what are the other functions of tRNA? There are two functions of tRNA. Okay, the main function is to bring the amino acid to the mRNA, okay, and the second function of tRNA is to bind to the codon of mRNA. Okay, so it is doing two functions simultaneously. It is bringing the amino acid with it, and it is also attaching to the codon of the mRNA. Now how will it attach to the codon of the mRNA? Very simple. There is a complementary triplet nucleotide sequence called as anticodon or NODOC which is present on the tRNA. and that is going to bind with the codon on the mRNA. Correct? So two functions of tRNA. Is this clear? Is it clear why tRNA is called as an adapter molecule? If amino acids had the capability of directly coming to the mRNA, they would have not needed tRNA. Are you understanding? So tRNA is basically recognize the codon and it is bringing the required amino acid. Okay, so that is the thing. Now the next thing given in your book about tRNA is they are again revising the structure of the tRNA. So let us do that. Now if you remember, we had studied the structure of tRNA, and the tRNA structure, there are two types of structures. If you remember, there is a structure which is called as the hairpin model, okay, and the other model is called as the clover leaf model. Correct? If you remember the hairpin model, see, hairpin model is not given in your book. I am just going to explain that so you remember. The hairpin model is basically only showing the anticodon on that. So the hairpin model is somewhat like this. This is the free end. This is your hairpin. Correct? This is your 5' end. This is your 3' end. On the 3' end, there are 3 nucleotides which are unattached or unbound. They are C, C, A. On the 5' there is G, and over here is your anticodon. Correct? So I am showing it in red, and anticodon. Correct? This model is called as the hairpin model. Very, very simple model. Now the clover leaf model, which is also shown in your book, if we see that structure, then again it has got 2 open ends. This is your 5' end. Correct? Now there are 3 arms to this clover leaf model, if you remember, and then a loop at the end. Correct? And the other end which is again open, which is called as the 3'. So please remember, some people have asked me this before, why are these ends open? Because RNA is a single stranded structure. It is not a double stranded structure. So basically what is happening is that single stranded structure is itself just going along like this and ending. So one end is going to be 5', other is going to be 3'. And in this tRNA structure, there is complementary binding in these areas. Okay, so you know that the single strand itself forms loops because complementary bases bind. So it is not a double stranded structure. Please remember that it is a single stranded structure. So anyway, coming over here back to this diagram, again C, C, A over here. Now very, very important to know, where does the amino acid attach? The amino acid always attaches to the 3' end. Okay, so if I want to show the amino acid over here, then the amino acid will attach to this 3' end. Similarly over here, the amino acid will attach to this 3' end. Okay, so this is where the amino acid attaches. Now coming to these arms, this is called as the DHU arm. So I'm just going to write it down over here. So this is also called as the D arm or the DHU arm. Okay, this arm is called as the T-Psi-C arm, and this is called as the anticodon arm. Similarly, these loops are also given the same name: DHU loop, anticodon loop, T-Psi-C loop. Now coming to this DHU, I think told you that these are basically different nucleotides. Dihydrouridine is the name of the nucleotides present over here. Okay, this DHU is also called as amino acyl. Okay, so this loop is also called as amino acyl loop. Why is this called amino acyl loop? Now this is not given in the book. This is extra information. This loop produces an enzyme which helps in attaching the amino acid to the 3' end. Okay, now when you see this structure, these 2 arms are not given, so I am not explaining with respect to this. I am just explaining this model which is given in your book. So this DHU arm is also called amino acyl loop because it produces an enzyme which attaches the amino acid to the 3' end. The name of the enzyme is also not in the book. It is called amino acyl tRNA synthetase. I will again tell you the same thing when I am teaching translation, so you don't need to remember it now. Okay, it's not in the textbook, so even if you don't remember the name, it's okay. Now this loop or this arm is also called as the ribosomal loop, or it is called as the ribosomal binding loop, because during translation the mRNA, the ribosome and the tRNA are all attached together, and when they attach together, then this loop helps in stability along with the ribosome. So this loop of the tRNA attaches to the ribosome, so it is called ribosomal binding loop or T-Cy loop. T is thymidine, Cy is the Greek symbol stands for pseudouridine, and C is cytidine. All these are nucleosides. Okay, nucleosides are basically structures which do not have a phosphate, they have only nitrogen base and sugar. Okay, this is the anticodon arm, this is the anticodon loop, and anticodon, you know, these are the 3 unpaired nucleotides. Is this structure clear? Okay, now this anticodon will attach to the codon of the mRNA, correct? So suppose I will now rub this anticodon off. Suppose if I draw an mRNA here, okay, suppose if I draw the mRNA over here, and suppose over here the codon is AUG, this is 5', this is 3'. Okay, so obviously the 5' end of the anticodon will be over here, 5', this will be 3' because it is complementary. So what will be the sequence over here? It will be UAC, and there will be hydrogen bond, so A and U double hydrogen bond, A and U double hydrogen bond, C and G triple hydrogen. So same thing, correct? Understood? Okay, so what is the function of anticodon? It is complementary to the codon. If this is sequence is AUG, then which amino acid will be present? Please remember, AUG is the start codon, and start codon always codes for methionine amino acid. So if you want to see the chart over here, you can see AUG is MET, methionine. Okay, now in eukaryotes the amino acid which comes is methionine for AUG, whereas in prokaryotes there is a slightly different form of methionine called as formyl methionine. We will learn it in translation. Okay, so depending on the codon, the tRNA will come bringing that specific amino acid based on the codon. Is this clear? You already know what is Wobble hypothesis, so I'm not going to repeat it again. In Wobble's hypothesis, what happens is one single tRNA can bind to 3 or 4 codons. Why? Because even if the last nucleotide pair is not matching, the first 2 can still hold it, and it can stay slightly unstable but still connected. So you know that Wobble hypothesis. Is this structure clear? Okay, so this is the tRNA structure. The structure given in your 12th standard book is the cloverleaf structure. The hairpin model doesn't show the 2 arms, but what is important is anticodon. Now there is one more part to the tRNA, and that is the variable arm. And variable arm is basically a structure which helps to support the tRNA when it is attached to the ribosome and also attached to the mRNA. So this doesn't have, this variable arm doesn't have any other function, it just supports the tRNA. Okay, so I am going to write that over here, variable arm. Is this structure clear? Again, base pairing over here, there is single G or CCA amino acid. Clear? Done. So we have finished with tRNA, we have finished with the part tRNA as an adapter molecule. Now it's already 14 minutes, and my recording time, I cannot overshoot 50 or 55 minutes, okay, because the video will stop there. So I'm not going to start with translation, because translation is going to take 1 hour, okay, and I want to complete the entire translation in one lecture so that that entire concept is clear. It is very, very easy. So what we'll do now is we'll just revise what we have learned earlier. So first of all, we are going to revise transcription. and then if time permits we are going to revise the genetic code. Okay, so shall I rub this off? Okay, so now coming to the transcription part, and before transcription we had studied something called as central dogma. Okay, the part before that, the Mendelssohn-Stahl experiment, DNA replication, all that part I am not going to revise because I have taught them thoroughly in the lectures. Even this part I have taught, but since there is time in this lecture, might as well revise because transcription is going to be important for translation also. Okay, so first of all we had studied something called as central dogma, and if you remember I had told you that central dogma is the summary of protein synthesis. And if you remember the equation was something like this. Sorry, so I had DNA over here. DNA was converted into mRNA. You can also convert it into tRNA, rRNA, and then that RNA is converted into polypeptide. Okay, so we write it like this. Now what is happening over here? Transcription. What is happening over here? Translation. We are yet to learn translation. So this is called central dogma. Where is the transcription going to occur? Inside the nucleus if it is eukaryotes, and inside the nucleoid if it is prokaryotes. Where is the translation going to occur? It is going to occur in the cytoplasm. So you know this. This is the central dogma. This was given by Crick. Now there was a separate summary given for retroviruses, if you remember. What was the summary or the flowchart for retroviruses? It was same. So DNA converts into mRNA, mRNA converts into polypeptide. Okay, many amino acids form polypeptide, many polypeptides form proteins. But in case of retroviruses, the retroviruses are the viruses having RNA as genetic material. So that RNA gets converted into DNA first through a process which is called as reverse transcription. So I will write down the processes over here. This is transcription, this is translation, okay, and this is called as reverse transcription. Reverse transcription means mRNA is getting converted to DNA, correct? Okay, and I think I had told you that the name of the enzyme over here is called as reverse transcriptase. Okay, if I have not told you, please remember the name of the enzyme for reverse transcription is reverse transcriptase, or it is also called as, see, now you are forming DNA from RNA, so it is RNA dependent DNA polymerase. When I am doing transcription, the name of the enzyme will be DNA dependent RNA polymerase. I hope you remember this. Clear? So this is for retroviruses. So I will mention it over here that this is for retroviruses. Retroviruses are the viruses which are RNA containing viruses, and these viruses basically change their genetic material when they invade the host. Is this clear? So we had done this, correct? Now we start with our next part, which is transcription, which we have already done. So how do we start with transcription? So first we have our double-stranded DNA molecule as usual, correct? So we are going to first start with the transcription unit. What exactly is the transcription unit? So let us again draw that structure of a transcription unit. So first of all, it is going to be a double-stranded DNA molecule, correct? This upper strand 5' to 3', this lower strand 3' to 5'. Okay, so now I need your help a bit. Please help me. Which is this strand? What is this strand called as? This strand is called as, it is called as coding strand. Okay, so I will write over here, it is also called as coding strand. What is the other name for coding strand? It is also called as sense strand. Do you remember this name? I told you coding strand is also called as sense strand. This lower strand is the strand on which the mRNA will be formed, so it is also called as template strand, or the other name for template is antisense strand. Is this clear? Okay, so this is the coding strand, this is the template strand, this is the sense strand, this is the antisense strand. Okay, now this area, okay, I will shade it with which color should I shade it with? I'll shade it with blue. So this area, the area that I am shading, this area is called as upstream area. Upstream area is the area which is towards the 5' end of the coding strand or 3' end of the template strand. Okay, and this area which I am shading is called as the downstream area, which is towards the 3' end of the coding strand or 5' end of the template strand. This is basically just left and right. Okay, now what part is there in upstream? A very important part, which is called as the promoter. Okay, so this area is the area where promoter is present. Okay, and what is the promoter? Promoter is basically the area where transcription starts, and this area is the area where terminator is present. Okay, so over here I will write terminator. Is this clear? So promoter is present upstream, terminator is present downstream. What is present in between? Something which is called as structural genes. So all the nucleotide sequences together form the structural gene. Structural gene will be converted to a complementary mRNA. Is this clear? So this structure which I have drawn over here, this structure is also called as the transcription unit. Is this clear? Okay, so this is there. Now if I want to begin transcription, what will I do? First thing that is going to happen is, to this promoter area an enzyme is going to bind. Okay, what will be the function of that enzyme? That enzyme is basically going to use this template to create a complementary mRNA. So what will be the name of the enzyme? It will be DNA dependent RNA polymerase. In your book they have only given RNA polymerase. Okay, now so let us start with transcription. So I'll just scroll down. Okay, now so here you have the double-stranded DNA, correct? This is 5', this is 3', this is 3', and this is 5', correct? If you want, I will write down over here, this is coding and this is template, correct? Now over here I am going to show the RNA polymerase, DNA dependent RNA polymerase. So that I have shown like this. Is that clear? So if you want, I can write down over here RNA polymerase DNA dependent. Clear? Okay, now if I am forming an mRNA, which RNA polymerase I will use? I will use RNA polymerase 2. You remember that order: 1 2 3 RMT. Okay, now what is going to happen is, when the DNA dependent RNA polymerase attaches over here, the hydrogen bonds between these two strands breaks only in this area, and what will happen is, this RNA polymerase will take the nucleotides. Okay, what will be the nucleotides called as? The nucleotides will be called as RNTPs. Please remember this. Okay, what is the meaning of RNTP? Ribonucleotide triphosphate. So these RNTPs in DNA, they are called as DNTPs. This is deoxyribo, this is ribo. So these are basically A, U, G and C. Okay, so they are present already, they are present in the nucleus. So this enzyme will take them, and what it will do, it will start transcription, and these nucleotides will be attaching complementary to this strand. So it will be like this, correct? and the 5 prime end is going to be over here, 3 prime is going to be over here, correct? Then what is going to happen? So this is your step 1. Now in step 2, what is going to happen? This RNA polymerase will move ahead, so I am directly showing it over here, correct? Write down the polarity. Please don't forget to write down the polarity whenever you are drawing these diagrams. By the way, this diagram is not there in the book. They have directly given the final diagram of post transcription, so you don't need to draw this. This is just for your understanding, but if you draw it, you will get good marks in the exam. That is another thing. So this is your template strand. I'm not writing it over here. Now your RNA polymerase, DNA dependent RNA polymerase has moved over here. Again, as it moves ahead, the complementary bonding is again present, so I am just showing this as the bonding between the complementary strands. Okay, then again you have to show your mRNA. So the mRNA will be like this up till here, and then this area is loose because there is nothing to attach. Is this clear? Okay, again this will be the 5 prime end, this will be the 3 prime end. Then what will be the next diagram? This will continue to move. Okay, I forgot to tell you, RNA polymerase attaches to the promoter. How does it recognize the promoter? How does it know that the promoter end is here? Because there is a protein which is also called as the sigma factor. Do you remember this? So the sigma factor is the protein which helps the RNA polymerase to recognize this site. Similarly, over here there is something called as the rho factor. So sigma factor will help the RNA polymerase to attach to the promoter. Okay, anyway, so we go ahead, and what happens next is, now the diagram is the one where we will show that the RNA polymerase has moved to the terminator region. So again 5 prime 3 prime coding, 3 prime 5 prime template. Then we will show the RNA polymerase which has reached the terminator area. So in terminator point, terminator area, there will be rho factor. Rho factor will tell it कि now transcription is over. Actually it is not over, there is post transcription, but the main heterogeneous RNA or the impure mRNA formation is complete. Okay, so now again mRNA, 5 prime 3 prime. Clear? As soon as the RNA polymerase reaches over here, the rho factor attaches over here, and what the rho factor does, it removes the RNA polymerase. So the next diagram will be something like this, that now your double stranded DNA is back to normal. So this is again your coding strand, complementary bound to your template strand. So this entire 2 strands will again be complementary to each other, so the DNA is not destroyed. And what will happen is, your RNA polymerase and the mRNA attached to it will be separate, and then the RNA polymerase will separate from the mRNA. RNA polymerase will go back, and you will have your mRNA. So the mRNA which we have shown will be over here, and it will be 5 prime to 3 prime. Now this mRNA is also called as heterogeneous nuclear RNA. It is also impure mRNA. So rather than using the word impure mRNA, we can call it heterogeneous nuclear RNA because it is produced in the nucleus. Now why is this impure? Because this RNA has got 2 areas. Okay, so now I will use a yellow color. Okay, so these yellow colored areas are the areas which I will call as introns, whereas the green colored areas are the areas which I will call as exons. Exons are the areas which will help in translation. Exons are the areas which have got codons. Introns are the areas which are non-coding. They do not have codons. They will not help in translation. So you need to remove the introns, because why would you want to have gaps in between the codons? If codons are continuous, then a good polypeptide will be formed. So what will be the next thing that will happen? the next thing that is going to happen is the introns will be released. So see, we have completed the main part of transcription. Is this clear? So we have completed the main part of transcription. We have studied the transcription unit, as you can see here. Then we started transcription with DNA dependent RNA polymerase. We formed the impure mRNA, that is the heterogeneous nuclear RNA. Now we are going to start with post transcription. Okay, and what happens in post transcription? So if you want, I will write down over here post transcription process. Correct? This is going to happen. First thing that happens in post transcription is the introns are removed. I had told you that they are removed by enzymes called spliceosomes, not given in the book, so you don't need to remember. And what they will do is they will remove the introns, and the DNA ligase, enzyme ligase, is going to join the RNA. Okay, so see, what is going to happen is the next step is going to be like this. You will have a shorter mRNA or heterogeneous RNA. Why it will be shorter? Because the introns have been removed, and this process I will write here as splicing. So splicing is the first post transcriptional modification, first process that happens after transcription. Clear? Now what is the second thing that is going to happen? After splicing, you need to mark the ends. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to label it here only because the page has actually ended if I scroll down. So the next thing that happens after splicing is you marking the 5' end, and 5' end is marked with a special nucleotide called as methyl guanosine triphosphate. Correct? This methyl guanosine triphosphate is attached to 5' end, and this process is called as capping. So number 2 over here, capping. And the next and the last post transcriptional modification is going to be what? It is going to be attachment of poly A tail. What is a poly A tail? Poly A tail is many adenine residues attached. Okay, so this is called poly. Poly is many. A, tail. This is cap, this is tail, and this process is called as tailing. So splicing plus capping plus tailing is the post transcriptional modification, and this final RNA which is formed is called as your messenger RNA. So is this clear how heterogeneous nuclear RNA is converted to mRNA? 3 processes: splicing, capping, tailing. Done. Clear? Okay, so we have completed with transcription. Okay, and this is the first part of protein synthesis. Now what will happen to this RNA? This mRNA is formed in the nucleus. It will go out into the cytoplasm. Okay, so many people will think, how will it go out into the cytoplasm? I think most of you know that suppose if I draw a cell like this, okay, and if I draw a nucleus like this, then the nuclear membrane has got pores, the nuclear pores which are present. Correct? So this ready-made mRNA goes out through the nuclear pore and goes out into the cytoplasm. Okay, so earlier it was in nucleoplasm, then it goes into the cytoplasm. Clear? Now coming to which enzyme forms which RNA. So I had already told you about this. Okay, so RNA polymerase 1, if I may write over here, is responsible for formation of rRNA transcription. Similarly, RNA polymerase 2 is responsible for formation of mRNA. Extremely sorry for that. And if the cell is using RNA polymerase 3, then it is going to be tRNA. Okay, so all these are DNA dependent RNA polymerase. All will be formed by the same method, that is transcription. Is this clear? Okay, this is present in eukaryotes. It is very important to remember that all these enzymes are present in eukaryotes, whereas in prokaryotes there is only RNA polymerase. There are no three enzymes. The second thing to remember is post-transcriptional modification, splicing, capping, tailing doesn't occur in prokaryotes because their mRNA doesn't have introns. So directly they produce mRNA only. They do not produce heterogeneous nuclear RNA. Another thing, this impure RNA is also called as primary transcript. So if you want, I will write it down. So there are three names: impure RNA, mRNA, heterogeneous nuclear RNA, or it is also called as primary transcript. This is the word given in your book. Is this clear? So have we completed with transcription? Yes. So I hope this part is entirely clear. So we have finished with transcription. All right. So I hope this part is clear. Okay. So we have done that. Now let me do one thing. Let me rub this initial part off. Now let us come to the next part, which is, let us revise the next part, which is about the genetic code. So what is the genetic code? The genetic code is basically the sequence which is present on your mRNA, correct? So suppose if I draw this mRNA like this, 5 prime 3 prime, if I give the sequence AUG, okay, CCC AUC AUUC AAGGG UAG. This is called as your genetic code. What is the reading frame? The reading frame is basically called as a codon. So the reading frame is this, triplets, correct? So you already know about this. Each triplet is called as a codon. Okay, AUG is also called as the start codon, whereas UAG, UAA or UGA are called as the stop codon. Stop codon is also called as the nonsense codon because it does not code for any amino acid. AUG codes for methionine, all this code for other amino acids, but this will not code. So any stop codon doesn't code for amino acid. So if you see the diagram over here, this table, so you can see UAA, UAG and UGA, there is stop written. So that is not the name of amino acid. They are stop codons. They will not form any amino acid. Whereas AUG will code for methionine. Is this clear? Okay. So this is basically the sequence is called as genetic code. Now what do we remember in genetic code? How many codons are present? 64 codons are present in total. Okay. So 64 codons will make up your genetic code. How many amino acids are present? The total number of amino acids which are present in the body are 20. So how will 64 amino acids form 64 codons form 20 amino acids? So if you remember, one codon can form only one amino acid, but one amino acid can be formed by more than one codons. Can you remember the points? One codon will form one amino acid, that is called as what characteristic? Non-ambiguous. And one amino acid can be formed by more than one codons, that point is called as degeneracy. Correct? Genetic code characteristics we are talking about. Is this clear? Okay, so this genetic code was basically, this part was first put forward by Crick. Then Gamow was the first to suggest that it might be triplet. Some people said that it can be a singlet. If it is singlet, then there will be only 4 codons. If it is a doublet, then there will be how many codons? There will be 16 codons. And if it is a triplet, there will be 64 codons. Correct? It is actually a triplet. So now tell me, how do 20 amino acids require 64 codons? Can you explain the degeneracy part? The wobble hypothesis which is there, what does wobble hypothesis say? Wobble hypothesis says that one tRNA can bind to 4 codons. How? Because the third nucleotide, even if it is not complementary to the third nucleotide of the codon, still the first 2 nucleotides will be complementary. The connection will be slightly unstable and wobbly, but still the tRNA will attach, so that is called wobble hypothesis. We had studied the example of valine, if you remember. I had shown that. Okay, so that is wobble hypothesis. So this is done. Who created this entire genetic code? If you remember, Nirenberg was there, okay, Masai was there. So there were certain people who together made this genetic code. Hargobind Khorana also played a very important role. He devised methods to artificially produce mRNAs. Okay, so that is the part of genetic code. Most important part is characteristics of genetic code. Can you remember the characteristics of genetic code? Let us rub this off and let us see if you remember. I'll write down the characteristics in short. There are 9 characteristics. What was the first characteristic? The first characteristics of genetic code. First characteristic is it is a triplet. So it is the genetic code. So you know the meaning of this. Made up of 3 nucleotides called as a codon. What is the second characteristic? The second characteristic was it has a definite polarity. What does that mean? That mRNA is always read from 5' to 3'. Codons are always read from 5' to 3' only, not from 3 to 5. Third is it is non-overlapping. What do you mean by non-overlapping? Non-overlapping means the codons and the nucleotides do not overlap. Correct? They are separate. Okay. So the nucleotide is not shared between 2 codons and it is called non-overlapping. What was the fourth point? It is commaless. Very simple point. You do not put a comma when you are writing the codons. They are written without a comma. Fifth is it is universal. What is the meaning of universal? The chart, okay, this chart of the genetic code is there for all organisms. All organisms have this same chart, so it is universal. Correct? Now to the 2 important points. Genetic code is non-ambiguous. So I have repeated this 1,000 times and I hope it is clear. Non-ambiguous means one codon can form only one amino acid, and the next point is going to be it is degenerate. Degenerate means one amino acid can be formed by more than one codons. Then point number 8 will be what? Point number 8 will be it has got initiation and terminating codons, or it has start and stop codons. So you know this. AUG is start, 5' and 3' and UAA, UGA, UAG. And the last is it has got codons and anticodon. Codon is present on mRNA and anticodon is present on tRNA. Both are complementary to each other. So is this clear? Are these 9 points clear? These are the characteristics. We have already done this. You have written this for your homework. So we have completed today's lecture. One thing that I wanted to say is, many people see, we are going to learn this in translation, that whenever I draw an mRNA, this is the 5' end and this is the 3' end, then it is not a rule that AUG is going to be the first codon which is present. The first codon can be, say, GGG or CUU, and then if AUG comes, then AUG over here, again any codon, CCC, AUU, then again UAA. But when will translation start? Translation will only start when there is a start codon, and it will end only when there is a stop codon. So suppose if I draw an mRNA like this, 5', 3', suppose if I GGG I write over here, AUG I write over here, UAG I write over here, CCC I write over here, then will there any amino acids be forming the polypeptide chain? No. Why? Because translation will start over here and end over here. There are no codons in between. This codon is of no use because it is before start and this is after stop. So this I will be explaining to you in detail during translation, but please remember that when we study, when we write mRNA, we normally write AUG as the first codon. That is not a rule. AUG can be anywhere. Wherever AUG is there, from there translation will start, and wherever the stop codon is there, it will stop. So codons which are present before the start codon and codons which are present after the stop codons, they are of no use, and they do not get translated into polypeptide chain, so they are called untranslated region, UTR. Again, this I will teach you during translation. So friends, we have basically in today's lecture, what did you learn? We basically learned about tRNA as an adapter molecule, okay, and then we revised the entire transcription and the genetic code. Mutations, I think you know. Frame shift, you know. Frame shift is when there is addition or deletion, and because of that the frame will shift. Okay, for example, over here if I add A, then the frame will be this, then it will be this, then it will be this. So the frame is shifting, new amino acids will be formed because new codons are being formed. Addition, deletion, correct. Then there is something called as point mutation. If the mutation is occurring only because of single nucleotide, it is called as point mutation. Best example is sickle cell anemia, correct. Okay, so next lecture is going to be your translation lecture. Okay, before that I am going to give you some homework over here itself. So okay, so I am going to give you homework related to transcription. Okay, so anyway, the first question for homework is, I am going to dictate. The first question is going to be sketch and label tRNA molecule structure, which is given in your book. That clover leaf model structure you have to sketch and label tRNA, correct. That is the first question. Second question is, now I am giving you a sequence. Okay, so this is 5 prime, this is 3 prime, correct, and I am giving you a sequence, and I say that this is the coding strand, correct. This is question number 2. So I have given you the coding strand. I want you to find out the sequence on the mRNA which will be formed. Okay, so the question is, this is the coding strand, find the sequence on mRNA that will be formed. Please remember, I have given you the coding strand, I have not given you the template strand. Okay, so you don't have to draw the template and then draw mRNA, just directly draw mRNA, so you know that the coding and the mRNA are same. The only difference is instead of T, oh, I am very sorry, I made a mistake over here. Actually you must have realized it. So those who realized, I cannot write U over here, this is the DNA, so this is T. So the only difference in the coding strand and mRNA is T is replaced by U, everything else is same. So this is the question number 2. Question number 3 is that I am giving you, sorry, question number 2, I am going to give you another coding strand. So it is going to be 5 prime to 3 prime, correct, and the sequence is going to be, oh, again I made the same mistake. So this is a G. This is the sequence on which strand? This is the sequence on the coding strand, correct, with the help, okay, with the help of wait, I will add 2 more A's over here. Okay, so this sequence is CCA TGA GGG CAA, and obviously here there will be start, here there will be stop. So I have not drawn the start and stop codon. Okay, or I'll do one thing, I will draw that, because then most people will get confused कि क्या हो रहा क्या है. So I'm going to just change this. Question number 2 is going to be like this. Sorry, question number 3, I'm giving you correct. This is the sequence. I am going to give you the sequence of the mRNA. So I will write, okay, Okay, what you have to show is you have to show the amino acid sequence which will be formed. So you have to use this chart, correct? So very simple, where AUG is there, so you have to draw the amino acid chain like this, whatever will be formed, and inside write down the short form. So AUG, here you will write MET, then GGC, GGC will be what? G over here, okay, then second G over here, C, so glycine, so here you like glycine, so and so forth, but here it will be stopped. So you have to draw this polypeptide chain, correct? So I am going to write down, draw the polypeptide chain formed after translation. So you just have to show it. So these are the 3 questions which I have given. Okay, so that is going to be your homework for today or tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm going to upload another lecture which is going to be your entire translation, and that will finish your protein synthesis. Okay, so thank you very much friends. If you have any doubts, please get back to me on my phone. Okay.